Well, welcome back. Now, Welsh Labour wants to hand out £1,600 a month to young migrants. The payout essentially means that asylum seekers would receive a universal basic income on top of their legal aid. And the proposal was exposed after The Sun saw a letter to Whitehall which showed 3 Welsh Labour ministers backing the plans. The UK government currently spends around £6 million a day on migrant accommodation. Look, to put this in a little bit of context, OK, that £1,600 a month would be more than double the state pension on average. And on top of that, they would get legal aid. And plenty of people in Wales right now will be on less money than that. Plenty of people in the UK will be on less money than that every single month and would still be over the threshold to claim legal aid. So essentially, the people who are being put up rent-free in taxpayer-funded hotels are getting double bubble. Joining me now is both Andrew R.T. Davies, the Welsh Conservative leader, and immigration lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal. Andrew, I'll start with you. I've got a collection of Labour MPs in the Wirral area here who are opposed to a migrant barge off the coast there. They say it's about human rights grounds. I think we all know that it's because their constituents actually wouldn't like it. And maybe, just some would say, they might be being slightly hypocritical about their true beliefs about the migrant crisis. But in Wales, it's worse. £1,600 a month for people who came here illegally, Andrew.
Well, thank you for having me this afternoon, Patrick. I couldn't agree more with the point that you're making. We know that the pull factor is something that we've got to try and stop to make sure the boats stop coming across the channel. We know Germany and France took similar measures to stop that pull factor, and they saw the numbers decrease dramatically. So when you have a devolved government, such as the Welsh Labour government, offering such a big carrot of £1,600, you're creating even a bigger pull factor to bring people across the channel and risk their lives and hand more money over to the people smugglers. And the other thing as well is this particular project that the Welsh Labour government have embarked on would be specific to 18-year-olds, as I understand it. I mean, lo and behold, we haven't been told this as members of the Welsh Parliament, but as I understand it, it's for 18-year-olds. And one of the first things that many people who cross the channel illegally do is obviously destroy their identity papers. So it is difficult to identify the true age of something.
All right. I'm going to throw it over to Harjap now. Harjap, look, when a lot of people say that governments care more about the rights of people just coming here illegally across the channel than they do their own, don't they just have to look at Wales, where the average common man and woman won't be getting £1,600 a month from the government, as well as free accommodation and food, and on top of that, the ability to get legal aid?
Yeah, I think this all stems from the fact that migrants aren't allowed to work. If they could work, they can pay their way, pay their own rent. We wouldn't need the hotels. We wouldn't need to finance them. They can pay their own legal bills. They can pay for their own food. We wouldn't need to provide them with vouchers for shopping. We've got to do something about that. We can't, and that stems from the fact that we can't process their cases quick enough. If we're going to take 2 years to process a case and we're not going to let anyone work to pay their way, then unfortunately we're going to have to fund them. And that's just the way it is. So we haven't got a system which can decide cases in 10, 15 days, which we should have. Other countries decide cases in 21 days or 20 odd days. And the other thing is we've got a backlog already of 160,000. So every day we add to that backlog, no one's going to clear that backlog. We don't let the migrants work. They can't pay their own way.
Oh, yeah, but where's this money coming from, Andrew? I'm sorry, but I thought we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. There will be a lot of old people, for example, in Wales, no doubt, struggling between heating and eating, people right on the breadline. But if you've just decided to leave Wales and go to Calais and get on a dinghy and come back over and find yourself back in the wonderful land of the Welsh, you can get yourself £1,600 a month and legal aid if they try and get you rid of you.
Well, that's a perfectly legitimate question. Where is this money going to come from? I've only dealt with today an issue in North Wales where a community hospital's having to shut a residential ward because of lack of resources and an inability to pay doctors and nurses to staff that ward. And here you have the Welsh Labour government, which is propped up by Plaid Cymru here in Wales, dishing out £1,600 a month to anyone who wants to rock up and, claim it crossing the channel illegally. As I said, it's really important that we draw down these draw factors across the whole country, but in particular here in Wales, so that that pull factor isn't there to bring people across the channel in the first place, ultimately handing the criminal gangs vast sums of money to bring people over and endangering people's lives. This isn't about anything else other than trying to stop the illegal immigration into this country of the people traffickers across the channel.
Harjap, it's one thing giving people legal aid, OK? It's another thing also giving them 1,600 quid a month and free accommodation and free food. I understand that you say, well, it's down to them not working. But to be fair, if they're not allowed to work and they're sitting in a hotel every day and they can survive off £1,600 a month, if pensioners who've paid into this system, and in fact, ironically, I interviewed the former head of UK immigration at Border Force, whose pension is less monthly than the amount of money we are giving people who've just come here illegally across the channel. Surely they can survive on that money and not still have to get legal aid, Harjap.
Yeah, I mean, legal aid is means tested. So if your income is zero, you're pretty much going to get legal aid, but only up to a certain amount. So you only get up to about 4 hours work or 5 hours work. It's not a great deal of legal aid, and lawyers don't really get involved until someone's case is refused at appeal stage. But I think with this government claiming that they haven't got any money, and we all know that that's not true because they've got money for certain things, to give their friends for PPE, to spend on test and trace. So they've got billions to spend there, but they haven't got it for the average person. And my dad's pension is less than 1,600 quid. You know, and my mum's pension
How do
is
you
even
feel
less
about
than
that?
So
how do you think about that? You know, do you seriously, how do you feel about that? Because this is, you know, ordinary people here, I think, would feel, Harjap, quite a burning sense of injustice.
Yeah, well, this is the government's created problem. Who has been in power for the last 13 years? How has this backlog grown?
In Wales,
it's
Labour.
Why haven't we deported people? Why have deportations gone down from 60,000 people in 2008 and 2009 to less than 3,000 people last year? 2,800 people. This is a crisis created by this government, and it has to solve it.
Andrew, answer that then, because you are, of course, the Welsh Conservative leader. So respond to that.
Yeah, I think people need to understand where the responsibility lies here. We're talking about a specific project which has been brought forward by the Welsh Labour government, not the Conservatives in Westminster, of paying £1,600 to people who come across the channel. That's what we're talking about here. And if you want to understand what Keir Starmer would be like in government, he said time and time again, look for what we would do in Wales. Look to what we do in Wales where we've been in government. We'd like to do that across the rest of the United Kingdom. So if you're angry about this in other parts of the United Kingdom, this is what could happen if Keir Starmer ever gets the doors to number 10. The keys to the doors are number 10. And it's really important that people understand that this is Mark Drakeford and his Welsh Labour government are proposing to do this. And when you compare it to what pensioners are on and other people who've paid in their pot, ultimately this is the wrong policy, the wrong choice and the wrong priority.
All right, look, both of you, thank you very, very much. There's Andrew R.T. Davies there, who's the Welsh Conservative leader, and immigration lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal. Strong stuff on either side. The emails are absolutely flooding in when it comes to this. Patrick, they can't work because they haven't been processed yet. 1,600 quid is what we give them every single month. That is more than what people get in wages. Give them absolutely nothing, says Adrian. He says also this is Labour for you. And he thinks it will act as a massive pull factor for people. Does it not feel a bit self-defeating? We're saying that, oh, gosh, we want to try to protect the human rights of these people by not making them come and stay in accommodation and barges off the coast of or in the Wirral or whatever, and then we're almost incentivising them to come. It appears to be quite self-defeating. By the way, I am and remain absolutely fascinated by the 3 Labour MPs to Wirral, all of whom we have reached out for contact and all of whom have refused to come on this show, by the way, who are opposed to the idea there's going to be a barge of around 1,800 asylum seekers in their area. They don't want it in their area. They don't want it. But, of course, one would imagine that is not for the reasons that they have potentially given. If you ask me, they've said that it's against these asylum seekers' human rights and they don't want any part of it. I strongly suspect it's because they realise that their own constituents don't want them there. But, of course, I can't put that question to them because they didn't want to talk to me. Anyway, more detail.